Okay, thank you. Call the committee of the whole of March the 20th to order. And you have in front of you an agenda. I'd ask for a motion, please, to adopt the agenda. Councillors Ady, Councillors Randawa. Any additions, deletions? All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. We have one item of business. It's a petition from the Prince Rupert and District Hospice Society. I'm going to invite you forward. As you come forward, I just want to remind you the meetings are televised. So when you do sit down there, we'll get your microphone on and you can identify yourself. As you're presenting, or if you have if you're asked questions or whatever, I encourage you to speak directly to the chair, and then we'll kind of redirect. This isn't a decision-making meeting in any way, shape, or form. So, but if councillors have questions of you, it will certainly give them a chance to clarify whatever it is. And yeah, with that, proceed.
Anne Falvo, Prince Rupert and District Hospice Society President. I'd like to thank the Mayor, councillors, and staff for having us tonight. I'm going to speak briefly about some of our bereavement services, and my Vice President will speak about advanced care planning. Prince Rupert and District Hospice Society provides grief and bereavement services to the community of Prince Rupert and surrounding areas. Our volunteers provide compassionate visits in-home, to the hospital, and to the Acropolis Manor. These are conducted in person, over the phone, or by Zoom. We also have a monthly drop-in for a grief support group, as well as a more lengthy grief group sessions, which tend to last between 8 to 10 weeks. Our next drop-in will be held on April 15th, Saturday at the library, and our next group will actually start on April 20th and will last until June 15th. We are always seeking volunteer members, and we will be having hospice training starting via Zoom from Terrace in May.
I'm Susan Crowley.
Can you pull the mic just a little bit more? Mostly for the people that might be watching on television.
Yeah, my husband.
yeah, at least one.
I'm the Vice President of Hospice, and I want to thank you once again for having us here. There's no question about the support from the city. We feel it. We have it all the time. In some ways, our services that we give overlap, and so we have a particular week in April that we have asked you to proclaim as Advanced Care Planning. There's a day at the beginning and a week. And Advanced Care Planning we just refer to sometimes as ACP. And you should have a little flyer in front of you that they're so nice, yes. And we had a pretty good talk last time about what advanced care planning is, and you have a good understanding. This is helping people to make decisions about what they want when they can still make the decisions. Talking to somebody about it is great. Writing it down is really, really important as well. So during that particular week in April, we're going to be at the credit union doing a pop-up. We're going to Herb and I'll be at the seniors tomorrow. We're going to see if we're going to work a little bit. The ACP people will work with the seniors during that week as well. But I did want to let you know that we, like many things in the city, we have encountered some challenges with getting together with people one-to-one since COVID. Our numbers are down for a number of reasons. People themselves are nervous about having somebody in to talk with them. They're nervous about coming, say, to the senior center or to the hospital, to our area to talk with us. And rightfully so. So our numbers are not what they once were. And so we really want the word spread. about advanced care planning and how we are here to help with that. There are other groups in town. We work often with the community paramedic, and we don't have a community paramedic at the moment. We work with the coordinator at the senior center, and we don't have a coordinator at the senior center at the moment. So all of these things are just, I think, little indications of how many things are just coming back in Prince Rupert. And we need the word spread, really, that this is what we're here for. And I will take any questions, but I just want to say thank you for your continued support. We'll see you somewhere during that week of advanced care planning. And any questions?
Excellent. Councillor Forrester.
Thank you both for presenting on something that I'm quite passionate about. I find it really interesting. A lot of people think that advanced care planning is just for older adults. I myself have done advanced care planning in my 30s, so quite a few years ago, just because if something ever happened, if I'm ever in a car accident, I want my family to know what my beliefs and values are. And I really find having conversations as a family really breaks down that barrier. It's not just for great grandma to have that conversation. It needs to be spread out a lot more. And so normalizing that. So thank you very much for all the work you do.
Thank you.
Councillor Randhawa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for doing great job for our community. You said like your numbers are down now. So how many you had before, and what's the number right now? And if somebody want join your group, how they can reach you?
Yeah, you have a business card, and our numbers are on all the flyers. And we have hired someone who has an office. We have a part-time person who works and is always either the cell phone or the landline will be answerable. That's fine. Those are the best ways. Our numbers are down, I would say, by about 40 or 50%. For example, the masking was a problem and continues to be a problem. And a lot of our people would be in one of the healthcare facilities where we still have masking regulations to a certain extent. And the whole idea that you had to get your, have a test done and get it checked before the person who was checking your test left at 5 o'clock and not on weekends, those kind of things were hard on us. So we're down considerably. And now I would say that we have probably under 10 in various places. Our grief groups are much better attended at the moment because we have lots of things happening that people are coming out to grief groups. But our numbers are really down considerably. So, yeah, I appreciate the question. It's the masking and the testing has been a challenge, and people's just general, ease with things now. And in fact, we are probably helping mostly families and people who are a little bit on the older spectrum. I would love to be in that situation where we're working with 30-year-olds. Because, for example, as a parent of a 30-year-old, would I be making the decisions for my daughter, or would her boyfriend be making the decisions? Who would she want to be making these decisions? So those kind of things are very important. But we are dealing particularly, I think, now a lot with people who are older. And so, yeah, I appreciate the question.
Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you for coming tonight. I've personally experienced some of your services through my father-in-law and that. They were fantastic. They're very, very good. They really help the family and everything. The advanced care planning is something I've never heard of before, and I'd gladly help you get it out in the neighborhood. And as far as the senior center coordinator, if you get a hold of me, I'll make sure that you have some contact there for the future.
Yes, we've been mostly at the moment working with Jackie, and so that's been good. And we've had one session with one of our board members, Michelle Boomers, who's had a session with the seniors earlier on before it became difficult to meet with people on fraud. And so Michelle is available again, and we're working on it. But and the lack of the community paramedic is a challenge, because when we worked with Jessica, we were able to work with the Nisga'a people as well, and through all the different legs of the stool, we worked with the Greensleeves. And so you're familiar with Greensleeves. Well, we kind of work together as much as we can here and get people to fill out the Greensleeves so that that's when an ambulance or paramedic comes, that's for them. And then ACP is an expanded version of that, of what, what they want. So,
Yeah, we
Yeah.
were using, well, we got bought into the Greensleeves quite heavily at the center. So, yeah, no, it's, I'll definitely make sure that possibly we can have you as a guest speaker at one of the general meetings next time too.
absolutely, sure.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Councillor Forster.
Thanks. I'm personally quite familiar with Greensleeves. I'm a nurse, but I wonder if some of the people that are watching at home might not be. So I wonder if you might just
Sure.
expand on that because it's a really great program.
Sure. Greensleeves is something that's here, I believe, is connected to Better at Home. I'm right, Barry? Better at Home. And they have taken on having a little plastic folder that is green in your house. Very, very noticeable, maybe on the fridge or somewhere like that. And in it is one sheet of paper that has all your health information on it, basically. It ends where advanced care planning begins, but it's for the community paramedics. I think really pushed it because they know then right away for when they're at a house. They just have to open that and they don't have to ask anybody any information really in a time of crisis. Everything is right there on that sheet of paper. And then where Greensleeves, it's just folded up on a magnet. And where they end, advanced care planning begins. And it says at the bottom of Greensleeves, make sure you have an advanced care plan, which gives a lot more detail than just when the paramedics get there.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
No, I said thanks.
Director Miller, have you got a formal request for a proclamation? Do we need to make sure that it's on an agenda?
That was taken care of the last meeting.
Thanks.
Mr.
Oh,
Mayor.
thank you.
Yes,
Oh,
that's
you're
why
so,
we
you're
said
so fast.
we said thank you for
I do
doing
my
it.
best.
Oh, there we go. Excellent.
Yes.
Okay. Well, with that, thank you very much for coming. Appreciate
You're
your
welcome.
being here. I appreciate all the work you do
Appreciate
as
your
volunteers.
support.
Yeah. All right. With that, and there's no further business, I would entertain a motion to adjourn to a regular council meeting. Councillor Ades, Councillor Cunningham, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Now call the regular council meeting of Monday, March the 20th to order. Ask for an approval of the agenda, please. Councillors Cunningham, Councillor Niche. Any discussion, additions, deletions? All in favor? Any opposed? It is carried. Is there any member of the public wanting to comment on any of the upcoming agenda items? Come on forward. If it's a matter on the agenda, you're more than welcome to come speak to it. Have a seat. Turn on the microphone. Introduce yourself.
Hi, my name's Toby. I moved here from Prince Rupert about 9 years ago. And one of the things that on the agenda that it really sparked my interest was the member panel for accessibility. I see a lot of Toronto's improvement was situated on this topic, and for this, as I was growing up, a lot of the time there was issues that I saw improvement based on things that I heard about in council's meetings in Toronto. One of the things was curbs being allowed to allow people to bring wheelchairs onto the sidewalk, and actually having sidewalks. See, I'm on 8th East where there isn't one, and I know that finances are tight. I just see the accessibility for seniors as a big issue when it comes to this, and that for their mobility and that being intertwined with the beautification of the city, there's a lot of parallels for and arguments for making it so that people can get around easier, and so that our properties look better and can go up in value.
Great. Thank you very much. Any questions from council? Thank you very much for coming. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right. There is the consent agenda in front of you, and I draw your attention to two items on here. First of all, I'll look for a motion to approve. The recommendation that all items on the consent agenda be accepted as noted and filed. Can I have a motion to that effect? Councillor Cunningham, Councillor Niche. I draw your attention to two items that are looking specifically for support. One is the letter, it's an email from Elisa Thompson with regard to Northwest Regional Hospital District, and I wonder whether you want to add an additional motion that we write a letter of support to that effect or not. And then the second one is the proclamation around item number 10, which is the request from International Purple Day for epilepsy. Any comments or questions? Councillor Adey.
So I take it you're asking if we would like to put those items on the floor for a motion relevant to the request?
Yeah, all you need to do is make an amendment to the motion. That
could I make that amendment and
absolutely.
And we'll come back to it later.
For both of those, or do you
Sure,
want to pick one? For both. So writing a letter of support for item number 9 and doing the proclamation for item.
That's
number
correct.
10. All right. So there is an amendment. All in favor? Or sorry, is there a seconder? Let's do this right. Councillor Randhawa. Any discussion? Now, Councillor Cunningham.
Okay, well, we as a city sit on the Regional District Hospital Board, and we've already sent a letter from the Regional District Hospital Board in support of this. Bulkley Valley Hospital has to be replaced. It's the second hospital to be replaced on the list. But personally, I wonder if we as a city, by supporting another city's hospital, because I've already noticed the replacement for Prince Rupert Regional Hospital was supposed to be the next one after Bulkley Valley, and it's now being bumped down to 4th, which means we won't be getting a new hospital till 2040. And I've already asked that that be put on the NCGL agenda with Northern Health, because they're replacing the hospital in Terrace, as we all know. You see it every time you turn. Now they're going to go to Smithers and replace a hospital there. The next hospital they want to replace is Hazelton, in between the two hospitals that are being replaced. And they're ignoring the western side, our Prince Rupert Regional Hospital, that services the whole coast and everything. So my fight with Northern Health is to get moved back to 3rd and not bumped down to 4th with capital planning and everything. To plan a hospital from the day you start it till it opens its doors 10, 15 years. And if we're bumped down to 4th, our hospital meets all the criteria of being replaced. It's over 50 years old, blah, 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 blah. I won't go into all the details. But first of all, I think we've already done our due diligence by saying we'll support this hospital through the Regional District Hospital Board. Both Mayor Pond and I sit on that board, and we voted to send a letter of support. I don't see where we, as a Western city, being left out on the Northern Health agenda, should be writing a letter to support something in the East. That's just my 2 bits worth on it, though.
Thank you. Councillor Adey.
I don't disagree with anything you said. I'm familiar with the list that you're referring to. I guess the reason I moved it for us to discuss it is so that we can bring some of that information out. But I also wonder whether there isn't some value towards moving that process forward expeditiously, because the sooner you get to the next item on the list, the closer you get to us being the subject of consideration. So that I would make that point. I'm not particularly married to an outcome related to the motion, but I think it's worth talking about.
Before I go back to you, Councillor Cunningham, is there any other councillors that want to comment? Councillor Forster.
I feel like there's almost two issues here. One is whether or not we write a letter of support, and separately Prince Rupert, because I think we should support having a new hospital somewhere else, but that doesn't mean that we don't support us having one too. The two issues are not tied. And I really feel quite strongly that it's not a matter of us versus them. And I think if we tie the two issues together, that's how it sounds. We both need a new hospital. And I would be reluctant to send a message that we wouldn't support them getting a hospital, because we might not. Everybody needs a new hospital, and everybody needs to work together across the north. And so personally, I think we need to separate the two topics. And I support both writing a letter to get Smithers a new hospital, because they desperately need it. But so do we. So then also advocating quite strongly for Prince Rupert to have one through the hospital board to Northern Health. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cunningham.
Smithers is already getting the hospital. They're past the planning stage. It's the next build. It's already there. The Regional District Hospital Board has put forth the funding for it and everything. It's going to be built, and it's going to be built next. They're already in the stages to do it. The development started. So, writing a letter to me is irrelevant. It's going ahead. It just takes attention off the fact that our hospital should be the next one after that, and they've already bumped it down. Are they going to pump it down farther? I don't know. It just seems that Northern Health ends in Terrace. And this is a battle I've been fighting for 4 or 5 years now. And, we're getting diminishing services every time up at our hospital. I've now heard that they're actively recruiting our staff at our hospital for Mills Memorial. I haven't got proof of it. I've just heard people say, did you hear this and that? And that. So, our hospital is being diminished, and you working in it know that. Where staff is down and everything, but we can have the discussion when it comes up with correspondence. But
Councillor Niche.
I have no problem writing a letter of support for this, like they're asking. But I do feel that through your meetings at the hospital board, that you could definitely advocate for trying to get us back to the next one on the list after them. So I do support writing a letter of support for them, because as it states on here that they need it for their master plan for the province to approve it. So the hospital board's approved it, but the master plan by the province hasn't been approved yet. So they're looking for support. So,
Councillor Eadie.
Yeah, my understanding is that they're seeking support in speeding the process along, which I would be in favor of for the same reasons I stated earlier, as it gets us that one step further down the list. With respect to what Councillor Forster is saying, I think the other issue, which I agree is a separate issue in terms of advocacy. I'm sure there's nobody in the room that disagrees that we don't need to find ways to advocate strongly that Prince Rupert's needs get met as soon as possible. And as a separate subject, maybe then we need to put some thought into what role council can play in moving that along. I see the request from Smithers as just trying to speed things up, and I think that's a good thing. But I would be equally enthusiastic about finding ways to raise the profile of Prince Rupert's needs and move that issue along as well.
Yeah, fair comment. All right, I think there's been good discussion. We have amendments to the motion. All in favor of the amendment? Opposed? Carried. Now to the main motion, which is the full recommendation, including the amendments. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. We now move on to see here. We've got Report from the corporate administrator with a recommendation that council proceed to the statutory notification process for the development variance permit. Director Miller, do you want to speak to this?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. Although I think you may have an old copy of the agenda, there is one other item on the agenda. That was the initial report from the manager of communications, who is absent this evening. So you're stuck with me on that one as well. So happy to do whichever you prefer. Would you like a copy of the agenda to see?
So what have you got for 6A? Sorry. What am I working off of? Thank you. Ah, there it is. All right, so 6A, report from the manager of communications, engagement and social development for support for the development of accessibility. Support for development of accessibility committee. That and the recommendation is that council directs staff to establish an accessibility committee and to advertise for membership to establish a committee of 7 people. Councillors, you're saying to me you don't see that in your agenda. Okay, we've got just a little bit of a mix up here. Councillor Randhawa, you moved the motion. Is Councillor Cunningham is the second. Is there any information that you would like to share with Council Director Miller?
Yes, certainly. First of all, I'm not sure why you all don't have that copy of the agenda, but I will certainly look into that. With respect to the development of the Accessibility Committee, it's per provincial regulation that the Accessibility BC Act, as well as with direction from Council from the 2023 strategic plan, that the city is seeking to better understand barriers to participation in local service provisions so that we can update our policies and services to better accommodate all residents. The establishment of the Accessibility Committee will not only support provincial requirements, but also the city's own aims to adopt policy pertaining to justice, equity, diversity, and inclusivity that were identified in both the strategic plan and the reconciliation framework. So what staff is seeking tonight is council's direction to commence.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Questions, comments from council? Councillor Cunningham.
Well, I think it's a great idea. We've had a lot of discussion about just what was brought up earlier about accessibility. Some of our sidewalks are in horrendous shape, not with the old bricks and that, uneven and that. Not only that, but we do have curbs in the city that still don't have wheelchair accessibility, things like that. And I think it's something we should look at whenever we do any planning downtown for the future. The part I like about this is that at least half of the members have to be persons with disabilities or individuals who support or represent organizations that support this. And, one of them is the seniors in town. There's a lot of barriers for seniors in this town that should be overcome, even though they can still walk fairly well in that. There's still disabilities that are unrecognized as a disability for seniors. And it's something that we've got to take a look at, and I will make sure the senior center is represented on this.
Perfect. Councillor Adie and then Councillor Forster.
Yeah, as one of the lucky ones that has it in my package. I just have a different way of getting them, I guess. I would note, first of all, that to me there's a degree to which we're put in a position where this is something we have to do anyway by provincial legislation. Second of all, we're in a position where we ought to do it because it's a good thing to do. And third, I note that the cost required there is the minimal in terms of any obligation on our part. So for those 3 reasons, I think that we should move ahead, and it's a good thing to do, and it'll move us closer to solving some of those accessibility problems that we understand that members of our community face.
Thank you. Councillor Forster.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I strongly support this. As somebody with lived experience with mobility challenges, you don't have to just be a senior to struggle sometimes with walking. And a lot of our areas aren't accessible to a lot of people. And so I think establishing a committee to start understanding what the public would like to see us do, this is, to me, it's pretty cut and dry. We should be doing this. Thank you.
Thank you. No further questions. All in favor? Any opposed? It is carried. Then moving on to 6B, which is the report from the corporate administrator with a recommendation that council proceed to the statutory notification process for development variance permit number 2301. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Is there Councillor Skelton Morven and Councillor Niche? Director Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What staff is seeking this evening is direction from council to proceed to public notification. No decision on the structure should be made this evening prior to that public notification. The structure is a 10 by 12 shed that has been constructed partially too close to the property line. It's understood that given the slope and topography of the property, it did cause some confusion as to where the actual property line was, given that the shed is in line with an existing non-conforming property. So we have sent out the application for staff review and now need to send it to the public as well.
Any questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? It is carried. Moving on to bylaws. City of Prince Rupert adjudication bylaw number 3497 with a recommendation that council give fourth and final reading to the City of Prince Rupert adjudication bylaw number 3497-2023. Councillors Niche, Councillor Cunningham. Any discussion? Councillor Cunningham.
When we had second, third reading on this, we did an amendment where we took out the bylaw officers, but there was also a fourth one in there, and I notice there's only A and B now and no C. If you look back at the last meeting.
Sorry, but where are you referring to in the bylaw? Is there a place in the bylaw that you're referring to?
Councillor Cunningham is referring to Part 7, Section 7.1. He is correct. There was an A, a B, a C, and a D. Council opted to remove C. It would appear that D has also disappeared from the bylaw, which was not the case. D was that the city manager be able to appoint any other officer in order to serve as a screening officer.
Okay.
If council is satisfied, we can add that in.
So that will be C, 7.1.
Or an independent contractor.
Correct. Correct. Thank you very much, Councillor Cunningham and Director Miller. So with that correction, any other comments? Councillor Randhawa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just I have a question like bylaw notice to dispute 6.3, say we charge like $25 if somebody like not sets. So can you explain that one, please?
Yeah.
Like if somebody failed to agreement, right? Then we charge $25 extra.
Yeah.
So like is that the expense for the city to
Correct.
go there or?
Correct. Director Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, as Councillor Randhawa mentioned, item 6.3 notes that there is an administrative fee of $25 for adjudication. So how the adjudication process, the dispute process works is if someone is issued a ticket that they choose to dispute, it then would go to a screening officer that would review the validity of the ticket, review the photos, ensure that the ticket was issued appropriately. If it's found that the ticket was issued appropriately, there's photos on file, etc., the screening officer could then say that the tickets stood. If the person still wished to proceed with adjudication, there is a fee because we do have to get an outside adjudicator. So the $25 fee is simply a recovery for city cost.
Thank you. All right. Any other questions? All in, Councillor Cunningham.
So what we're saying is if you want to dispute a ticket, it's going to cost you money.
No, Director Miller.
We want to clarify.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To dispute a ticket is no charge. The initial portion of the dispute is you simply there'll be a form that will be live, providing council passes this bylaw. Immediately following the meeting, you can go online and there's a form to fill out Once you dispute the ticket, the ticket and all of the file information then goes to the screening officer, which would either be myself or Dr. Buchan at the moment. We would then review the file and provide a ruling to the person who was issued the bylaw infraction. If they still choose to dispute the ticket, then there is an application fee for adjudication. It's a $25 cost in order to have the adjudication take place.
Councillor Cunningham.
So basically, there's a fee to dispute your ticket. At the end of the talk, there's a $25 fee to dispute your ticket.
Go ahead, Director Miller.
Thank you. Only if you go to adjudication. The actual dispute process is no charge, but the adjudication is where the fee comes in. It would be no different and actually far less costly than if you choose to dispute the ticket and go to court, where the fee is significantly higher.
All right. Councillor Forster.
Sorry, that just triggered a question in my brain. So, let's say I get a ticket and I dispute it and there are pictures on record. Before I decide whether or not I want to go to adjudication, do I get a copy of those photos?
Director Miller.
Thank you. Once the ticket is then reviewed, so for using your example, if you get a ticket, I review the photos and determine actually it was a ticket issued incorrectly, or it's not your vehicle, or the vehicle color was wrong, or what have you. We may not necessarily provide you with that information, but we would then note that the ticket has been waived. Yeah.
Councillor Randhawa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So like if somebody like go for adjudication, right, and they successful on that side, so then they still have to pay 25, or then that 25 be not, they don't have to pay.
Director Miller.
Thank you. The fee for adjudication is $25. It's going to cost us $25 to proceed with the adjudication. So yes, but if your ticket is $150 and your adjudication fee is $25, seems like a pretty good savings. So,
Councillor Adey.
The phrase "tempest in a teapot" comes to mind, but I'm just wondering if there is a sense of, for all of the tickets that we issue, and I know part of this issue, where this issue comes from, is that it has been a voluntary system, and I think there was a percentage that we understood that, you know, number of people who receive tickets versus number of people who actually pay them, and it was a rather low number, and so you know, I think this whole process is being put in place to try and improve the stats. So how often do you anticipate that a ticket like might get contested in this way and get all the way to the $25 adjudication fee? Can you speculate, or?
Director Miller.
that is a very good question, and I wish I could speculate, but I cannot. The ticket portion, just to reiterate, is not voluntary. It's only voluntary until you choose to not dispute, in which case you've accepted that you've done the bylaw infraction. By disputing the ticket, you are saying, no, that wasn't me. In other areas, you know, our bylaw officers have ways and means to ensure that the tickets are correct, but errors do happen. So it is possible that once we review the information, we can provide you with that information to say, here's all the evidentiary proof that yes, your car was on the yellow line, in which case, should you choose to proceed with adjudication, then I guess that's your choice. But in other jurisdictions, it's been up as high as 80 to 85% for compliance.
Councillor Niche.
So after this gets done, if it gets passed, are we removing the word voluntary?
Director Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, we are legally unable to remove the word voluntary. A ticket is voluntary for the first 14 days because you have an option as to whether or not you decide that you have actually done created the bylaw infraction. If you choose to dispute it, it's voluntary. If you choose not to dispute it and 14 days pass, the ticket is no longer voluntary. You can go to arbitration or adjudication if you like after 14 days, but if those 14 days pass, you are now saying that no, it was actually in fact me that did did the crime.
Councillor Cunningham.
Sorry to keep bugging you, Director Miller, but that word voluntary without an explanation has caused a lot of misunderstanding of our tickets. So why are we only collecting 25% of our tickets and 75% are outstanding if we're supposed to be taking everyone's tickets past that stage? I can't understand why 75% of the time, my bylaw officer's time, is being wasted then. You know, it's why are we taking this to another step when we've got the process already there to take care of it?
Director Miller.
Thank you. Not a bother at all. I could talk bylaw tickets all night. Uh, the reason we've gone to an adjudication process is through this process we can now serve tickets by mail. Previously, if you had a parking ticket, which is $20 or $35, it's not worth a bylaw officer to go to file an application in court every single time and clog up the court system with a $25 infraction. Through the adjudication process, we can now mail you the ticket as opposed to doing a personal service, which then takes the time of the bylaw officer to go do that. We have to track you down. We have to provide that we've done service, and then we need to file court documents in order to show this. So by going through the adjudication process, we can now mail the ticket to people. And if you choose to not dispute it, and you then are accepting that you've done the infraction, it makes collections easier. We now have evidentiary proof that you've accepted the ticket.
Councillor Forster.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really appreciate all these explanations. I wonder if there might be an opportunity to put on the website somewhere a definition of some of what's been expressed tonight. You know, the voluntary, because I completely understand the explanation. You can't change the wording, but I wonder if there's a way, perhaps on the website, that could be expanded.
Director Miller.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Actually, as of end of the meeting tonight, pending approval of and passing of the bylaw, our communication manager has prepared a plethora of information for the website, including definitions of the voluntary system, what a ticket is, what an infraction looks like, and the process clearly outlined for a dispute, as well as a button that will take you to the form should you wish to dispute your ticket.
Well, then let's see whether council's going to pass the bylaw. All in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. Thank you very much. We now move on to reports from councillors, and I'll just work from Councillor Adie. Go ahead.
I think I would be remiss in expressing my appreciation to the province for the shot in the arm that they gave us on Friday. I was present when Premier Eby was here and made his announcement. I note that others have reached out to express similar appreciation through Facebook and so on, and I don't generally field my gratitude that way, so I'm going to field it here. I do want to just offer the sort of the rider on that as we will likely discover through the budgeting process. It is help in a very specific way. It's massive help, but it's help in a specific way that doesn't necessarily address some of the other pressures that we're under. And I'll leave it to the budget process to bring those other aspects out. But we should not be anything but appreciative of that one very massive infusion of cash. And I hope that it helps us get to a place where we're not as vulnerable with respect to our water pipes as we have been recently. So if we can get to where we've solved that problem, preferably before the next winter and the next critical mass of problems emerges, then that would be a good thing. So I am appreciative of that.
I think it's really important for the people to understand precisely what you've outlined, right? Is this has nothing to do with lowering our operating costs. Um, uh, it, as a matter of fact, you know, there's a chance that it may oblige us to spend more than we were going to spend because the analogy I like is you know you're living in a house, the roof desperately needs repair. You've got buckets everywhere catching the rain, and you know that the bill to repair it is well beyond your ability to get up there and do it yourself. And along comes somebody and says, "Here's a pretty substantial sum of money to help you along the way on fixing the roof." Doesn't fix the whole roof, but it helps you fix the roof. Quite apart from that, you've got your family's budget: meals, gas, clothing, sports. That didn't change because that person gave you the money to help you fix the roof, right? And if anything, you probably sit down and have a discussion as a family and say, okay, we've got this money that could help us do the roof. Are we prepared to do something more so we can get the roof done, right? Like, and so it people, I just hope people separate it in their mind. This is massive in helping us deal with a backlog, uh, but it sure doesn't deal with it all. But the budget of running police, fire, recreation, all of those other things, and ongoing road repair and everything else is a completely separate matter. And I thank you for drawing attention to that. Councillor Randawa.
Yeah, I would like to thank the province for again for this great announcement for big help for our community. So we were trying to lobby for a long time, and I like to thank our staff for doing
Yeah.
a great job on that
Yeah.
file, and hope they can keep on with our level, other levels of the government too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Councillor Forster.
Thanks. I'd also like to echo same as what's already been said. Something I would also like to add for new announcements or information. I sit on the library board as part of my role here on this board, and I'm very excited that after a great many years, at our last meeting, we approved the strategic plan, which I know Councillor Adey sat on that board for a great many years, and a lot of people in our community contributed to the work of that board that I'm new to. So I just wanted to publicly thank everyone who gave some advice and some information to help shape where our library is going.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Cunningham.
Okay, you know, I've already expressed my gratitude with all of it, with the 65 million and that, and I agree with your analogy of the roof and the day-to-day expenses of running a house and everything. What people have to realize is these one-shot big infusions aren't solving the problem. We need sustainability. The RBA, we got to settle the cap, the fairness in taxes and things like that.
Yep.
These are the things that take care of the day-to-day running of the city. And if we're successful with the RBA and we start getting $6, $7, $8 million every year that we know we're going to get every year, we can start looking forward to doing things. As it is right now, you know, we've still not turned the corner. We've just straightened out the road a little bit before we get to the corner. One of the things that was in the correspondence that we passed over was the provincial government's answer to the UBCM request about
Yes.
passing up on taxes on secondary suites and that. One thing that should be brought to light is people that have illegal suites, fine and dandy, they're helping solve the housing problem to a degree. But if they're an illegal suite and they're not paying utilities, it's just transferring that burden to all the other people paying utilities. And I've been getting a lot of complaints about people saying, well, I know somebody's got a suite and they're not paying utilities and things like that. Well, you know, this is something that's a hard one for the city to solve. But the fact is that if we're not collecting utilities on 20, 30, 40 houses, extra utilities, then you know what? That puts the burden back on the people, and that's why these other utilities are constantly going up every year, because people have to realize that our utilities don't come out of the taxes. They come out, they're self-sustaining. They, you know, whatever the utilities are, we divide up amongst all the houses in town. And that's something that people, you know, have to realize. But you know, I just think it's something that has to be explained every year to people, because I've been getting a lot of complaints about the price of utilities this year.
Yep. Yep. Water, sewer, both sanitary and storm, and solid waste, all are paid through the utility, not through taxes. Was there any other comments, questions? Councillor Skelton Moore.
Yeah, I just also wanted to kind of second the gratitude for the province and that major injection, and for us, just the work of the staff over the years, past and present, and previous members of council, and just kind of what led up to where we are now. And the other thing is just really kind of emphasizing, yeah, there's been a lot of catastrophic failures that we've experienced in town. There's a lot of things that will continue to have to be maintained, regardless of this injection. But also, I'm really hoping that this encourages the federal government to make a move in that regard as well, because there's a lot going on and there's a lot more that we need to do as a municipality. Thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, I'd like to jump on that and just carry it further. Right. We had tremendous support from our MLA. She got us to the places and the people that we needed to be at. During the ceremony at the museum, you know, Minister Kang mentioned that she'd met with me 4 times since she just got into this ministry. Those were substantial meetings. That wasn't sort of bumping into each other in a hallway somewhere. Those were substantial meetings. I've had 4 substantial meetings with the premier and much of that occurring because of the hard work of our MLA to make that happen. On the federal side, our MP has been equally hardworking for Prince Rupert. I have met with him in Ottawa, in Victoria, and here in Prince Rupert. He has been, I've met with him twice here in Prince Rupert, 2 very separate occasions. He brought to us a House Select Standing Committee on Transportation, Infrastructure, and Communities. We met here in this room with that committee, and it was at Taylor Bachrach's insistence that not only did that committee come to see the port, because the port legislation is what they look after, but indeed you got to come talk to mayor and council, and so those of us that could met with them here, and we had a very fruitful meeting that went well over time because of the kinds of questions that were being asked of us, and so we're very hopeful that with Taylor's help and with other help, and the premier's help, in fact, we'll be able to get Ottawa to give us a little bit more attention and a little bit of assistance as well. I also want to just, you know, coming back, I have the luxury of having been here before, been away for 14 years, come back. I can tell you that the management team at the top here within City Hall is first class. Any other community would just die to have any one of them. And there's 4 senior managers here inside this building who are all Prince Rupert born and raised, products of the public school system here in Prince Rupert. And you know, our CFO Corinne Bauman, our corporate administrator Rosa Miller, the other 2 have really long titles, but I'll shorten them. Our ECDev Paul Vendatelli, and our director of operations, but he's so much more than that, Richard Pucci. And the credibility we have with ministry staff is astounding. It's just astounding. They trust each other. They call each other. They know who to talk to. They're on a first name basis, and that's what makes $65 million possible. If that's not happening, you're just getting a request that goes into a bin. So I just can't say enough about the horsepower that's here. The other piece of it is, and I think it's kind of been touched on, $65 million doesn't go and fix. So we've identified 26 kilometers of very high risk water pipe that is just on the edge of catastrophic failure. You can't get to that in a year. We'll get some of it done this year. We'll get some of it done next year, and we'll get the remainder done in a third year. Well, I'm worried about next winter because we'll have tackled some of it, but next winter it could be pop again. And so I want, and the only reason I raise that is to set people's expectations that to go back to my analogy, we'll be working on the roof over the course of quite a few years, but there's still going to be buckets catching the drips, where we just can't get to yet, right? So all of that is to say, this was last week was a fantastic week. I'm looking forward to more fantastic weeks, but people in Prince Rupert need to know we're on a 4 to 5 year renovate Rupert, and everybody I know in town has done renovations at home and lived in the house at the same time. And there's no way to do it without having drywall dust in your cereal. Like, it just is part of what happens. And all you can do is pin the picture of what you hope it's going to look like on the fridge and keep on keeping on. Anyway, and then finally, council, to you, kudos. You have permitted me to do what I thought needed to be done, but also you guided that, you shaped it, and you were there whenever you were needed to respond to these different things. And so both from Councillor Forrester and I, who are new on the team, but also to those of you that were here before and those that were part of that team. I said it the other day, I mean it from the depth of my heart. Serving on a council is not a sprint, it is a relay race where you hand the baton to the next council. And every council does the best they can with what they've got, and then they take that baton and they hand it to the next, and the next carries it on, right? So we were able to carry it. Race isn't over. We'll carry it again, and we'll pass that baton on to another council. Anyway, with all of that, I think I've spoken more than enough. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Councillor Skelton Morvan, Councillor Cunningham, all in favor. Any opposed? It is carried.